that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the very famous Tom Fennell, man about town, philanthropist.
Whoa. Hope that wasn't too shiny for everybody.
Your head isn't as shiny as mine. Okay.
Bragging again?
Bragging again, that's right. You haven't noticed that I got a haircut.
Well, no.
My beard is short.
I see that,
yeah.
yes, yes.
The barber said,
you get one once a year whether you need it or not.
That's right. The barber said, you shouldn't do that. You know, you're going to be cold. I'm not kidding. So every day I get up. Today I was up really early. It was about 1 o'clock. Couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
So about 2 o'clock I just started working, and By
the way, do you know where your eyeglasses are right now?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I can feel them. Every day I go to the internet and I find news for energy and climate change, and I just search and I go through a couple hundred titles, find the ones that I want, and I put together a synopsis for each of those along with a link to the original article, and put them together in a blog posting which goes up on my blog, geoharvey.com. Daily, yeah, yep. Geoharvey. I have put up over 20,000 links now.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been doing this for years. And every week, Tom and I get together and talk, record our stuff on the postings, on the items that we think are the most interesting. So we're starting this show.
I just want to interject that, some of these articles are really worth following.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have time to talk about them. We
could
spend a whole program on something.
Yeah, that video that I sent you, that Jason Cooper sent me.
Yeah.
We should do it. We should do that as an extra. I really think. Yeah, absolutely.
Was
really good program.
So anyhow, my point is that occasionally I'll mention it, but if I don't, go to his blog, click on the link, and see that some of these are really worth following up on. There's one we'll talk about later today that was really well done.
Yeah, and I try to keep track when I'm announcing these things. I try to keep track of the date that they were posted. You can go to the blog. There's a calendar. You can click on the day. We're starting this week on January 12th. We're recording the show on the 19th. And so if you hear something that you want to look at, you can go to the blog, click on the date, and find it, and go. So we're going to start on the 12th, and our first item here is from Wind Power Engineering, and we have a graph for this.
Yeah, this is very interesting. This is the EIA, Energy Information Administration's
which is always wrong.
It's their annual energy outlook table.
Yeah. They're usually right about things that have already happened, unless it's solar power. Then they're right.
Pull this thing up so we can see it a little bit.
And what they've got here is a graph that shows what's going to happen, they say, with energy going forward. And you'll notice that they're saying that dry natural gas in 2040 will probably give us about 40% of our energy. This is.
They're really counting on dry natural gas.
They sure are. Crude oil will be something over 20%.
Coal's going down.
Going down, but between now and then, it'll go up a little bit. They're saying it'll be marginally higher in 2017 than it was in 2016, a little bit higher than that in 2018 and 2019.
Then it's going to start its
and then it'll
descent.
start. And and then renewables will catch up with coal slowly. And the thing that's interesting about this, well, I should read what did you give the title of this article?
Well, the annual energy outlook.
Oh, okay. The Energy Information Administration's annual energy outlook provides projections of domestic energy markets until 2050 and includes cases for different assumptions of macroeconomic growth, world oil prices, technological progress, and energy policies. It shows the U.S. becoming a net exporter of fossil fuels. Can't we be proud of ourselves? And
Well, as they say this, energy market projections are subject to much uncertainty.
well, maybe we should switch to this other graph. It's already there, Tom. We showed this last week or the week
Yeah.
before. This is the EIA projections. This is the same organization, and you'll notice every one of these lines on here goes up for a couple of years and then levels off. Those are all of their projections. Now,
Right, everything here, with the exception of the top orange one, is a projection.
yeah, and the top orange one and the light blue one, which is directly below it. The
Right.
darker blue that connects to that
That's a
at
projection.
2016 is their projection. And the orange one at the top, that's what actually happened. The stuff
Those are
that's
real numbers.
those are the real numbers. The stuff that's under that is the projections that they've made. It's all guesswork. And of course, they're providing this information to Congress, and the Congress is supposed to make energy policy based on this. What can I call it? Hooey? Anyway, that's that. I suppose you got anything more to say about
That's
that?
a new word for that stuff. It's woo.
Woo, okay. All right, should we pass on this
Yeah,
and go
I
to our
think
next item?
We've made our point.
We have. Our
This is woo.
yeah, our next item is from Clean Technica.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
States with clean energy are creating jobs and economic growth. Duh.
Duh. A groundbreaking study from the U.S. Retail Industry Leaders Association and the Information Technology Industry Council. You'll notice neither of these is some kind of weird hippie left-wing renewable power. You know, these are business organizations. They ranked all 50 U.S. states based on the ease with which some of America's most recognizable brands are able to bring buy domestic renewable energy. It connects that ability with economic growth. Now, what they're saying is if you have a big company like Kellogg's or Nike or something like that, and you want to get renewable power for your factory in Kentucky,
And it's a big factory.
and it's a big factory, how easy is it for you to go out and buy that renewable power?
Well, these days it's a lot more easy than it used to be.
Oh, much easier than it used to be. But they've ranked the states,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
then they compared them with state growth,
Yep.
economic growth, and they found,
Lo and
wow,
behold.
there's a connection between how well your state is growing and how easy it is to get renewable power.
Well, they explain it well here.
Yeah.
It means that the structure of a state's electricity market can directly influence where corporations choose to invest.
Yes, of course.
There you go.
Wow. And we'll see this cute little thing that came up from Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what do we think is going to happen in Wyoming?
Well, there's an explanation there. We'll get to it. When
We
get to
will,
it.
yes.
Got a hint though. It's about coal.
Yes. Okay, our next item is also from Clean Technica.
Okay.
And this is still on January 12th,
Hawaii's HECO, which is the Hawaiian Electric Company,
right?
may reach 100% renewable energy target 5 years early.
5
They
years
will.
early. Yeah, they will. They will. The Hawaiian Electric Company, Hawaii's dominant public utility, has a plan to achieve, oh yes, of course, there we go, has a plan to achieve 100% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2050. But recently, the company said it foresees getting to that goal 5 years earlier than expected. In fact, HECO expects to provide 48% renewable power by 2020. That's just around the corner.
Well, they got an incentive. They've been buying diesel fuel to create most of their electricity.
Right.
And it's expensive.
And it's
I mean,
expensive.
you got to bring it over there in tankers.
Yes,
Natural gas, they can't get a pipeline to Hawaii.
That's
They got to
right.
bring that in on tankers.
that's right.
So it's very expensive.
wonder if it would make sense to lay a submarine cable to Hawaii.
At this point in time,
Probably
it's a
not.
little bit far.
A little bit. You know, we're
I don't
hearing
think
these.
we're far off from the technology. Though.
No, I mean you hear about submarine cables connecting Iceland and Scotland.
Yeah. Well, Hawaii's a little further, but
Yeah, Hawaii is a little further.
this is
Okay.
an interesting picture here.
Yes, it
It's
is.
solar collectors. It's not photovoltaic.
Yes, that's right.
And everything you see there is mirrors.
Yep.
And those mirrors are parabolic, and they're concentrating the sun's beam on pipes right in the middle of the mirror,
Yep.
making something very hot.
Very, very
Not
hot.
water, but-
Very, very hot. It might be
And-
salt.
Yeah, it's probably some kind of salt.
Yep.
Molten salt.
Molten
or something
salt.
like that. And they use that to generate steam. And then they go back into the old-fashioned using the steam to run a turbine.
Right. There you
But
go.
where you got a lot of sun with heat, not Vermont.
Yeah, well, you know, I had a friend who wanted, he was really into the idea of renewable power. He decided he was going to build one of these things.
Uh-huh.
And he did a homemade kind of construction, and he discovered that and this was not in Vermont, it was in New Jersey. And it was in the winter. But it was not at all practical. And the reason why was because he had to keep the water he had in the pipe under
From freezing.
control. No, it was like in no time it was boiling. And he couldn't
No
push
kidding.
water
Wow.
through the pipes fast
Fast
enough
enough.
to deal with that boiling problem.
And this is
And
in
he-
the wintertime in New Jersey?
Yeah, and he just said, you know, I don't have time to try to figure all this stuff out. The sun is warm enough in Vermont. Last winter, almost a year ago, I got a solar oven,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was actually cooking in February
I can
outside.
believe you can do it. The one big difference here is these solar collectors rely on the heat of the sun
Right.
to generate their electricity.
Right.
Whereas photovoltaic relies on the light
of the sun, and
So they'll generate a lot of energy on a very cold day.
yeah, and relying on heat is somewhat more efficient if what you want is heat. But if what you want is electricity, the heat may not be all that efficient because converting heat to electricity is not efficient,
No, it's got to go through the old-fashioned steam cycle.
which means that you're limited to about 35%
Yeah.
there. And so even though you might get 60% efficiency out of these kinds of things for making heat, which would be really good if what you want to do is heat buildings, getting that to electricity, you're going to cut that down to about a third of what it was. So you're already down to 20%, which is solar panels are
Well, you know, there's
comparable.
something we can use here. Almost anybody who's got a south-facing wall
Yeah.
can put a solar collector, heat collector,
Yes.
on that wall.
Yes,
Not a box, not much bigger than a door.
that's right.
And I know a woman's got one of those things. She's almost all winter long. The
Thing
furnace
just
isn't running.
cranks out heat. Yeah.
On
for-
sunny
and
days,
one of
she's got to open the windows.
One of the nice things about solar power is that you know how much it's going to cost years in advance. You know how much you're going to spend on your fuel. Okay.
Well, they haven't figured out how to charge us for the sun yet. They're working on
they're
that.
working on it.
Nice
We
picture coming up
we
here.
are up to January 13th, Friday.
I love this one.
Yeah, this is a
love
good
this
one. Okay, this is from Energy Matters.
Energy Observer is the name of the boat.
Yep.
Ready for world adventure.
In 2017, a high-tech ocean vessel powered by the sun, wind, and seawater will start a 6-year journey visiting 50 countries. The vessel is powered by 130 square meters of solar panels, 2 vertical axis wind turbines, 2 electric motors equipped for electrolysis, and equipment for electrolysis, which will use seawater to create hydrogen fuel.
Well, the fuel goes through a fuel cell,
Yeah,
which runs an electric motor.
yeah,
So basically, they're using hydrogen as a battery,
yeah, and they've got,
storing energy with the hydrogen.
so they're gathering wind power. Those funny looking things that are sticking up in the air that look like
They're turbines.
they're turbines. They look like DNA molecules or something, and they are turbines, and those are what are called vertical axis turbines.
Yep. Which don't make much noise at all.
They don't make noise. They don't. There's a lot of. They're very different creatures than
Well, I
the.
got to point out something about this ship, though.
Yeah.
Looking at the picture,
Yeah.
it's not small.
No, it's not.
This is
It's-
not something you're going to run into the Connecticut River.
No, it's not.
This is an ocean-going ship.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
those two pontoons are about the length of 3 city buses.
Yeah, and
They're about 100 feet long.
you can. It's hard to gather the actual dimensions of this thing from the photograph, but if you look very carefully, you can see that there are railings on the pontoons.
Yep.
You can see little things sticking up. I don't know how tall those are. I
They're
doubt.
pretty tall.
Yeah, I doubt that they're much. I doubt that they're over 4 feet tall.
I think they are.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, they are there to keep people from getting washed overboard.
Oh, sure.
And
There's two, how would you say, wires between them. And the bottom
Okay.
was 4 feet probably.
okay, all right.
But this fascinates me. I love this ship.
Well, you know, catamarans are interesting things just to begin with, and this thing has got so much high-tech gadgetry on it. It's amazing.
There's another thing weird about this picture is the parallax. Those solar panels are centered in this ship. They're not off to the left like it looks in the picture.
Actually, they look to me like they are behind the center section of this.
Well,
They're
the center section is the bridge of the ship,
The
and
bridge.
they are behind
They-
it, which is right in the center.
They look like they're astern of it, and it almost looks like the forward section of those solar panels is approximately at the back, the stern end of the bridge.
It is. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So,
Looks like they can look
which
frontwards
is-
and backwards.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Moving on.
Moving along.
Our next item here.
We could talk about this one all day.
Oh, yes, we
I'm
could.
thrilled by it.
Our
How
next.
do I get a ride?
You know, I was thinking the same thing.
By the way, there is a takeaway. There's actually 2 of these. They're
Oh.
building another one, slightly different design.
Yeah.
This one's going on a 6-year journey.
Yeah.
Have you read it yet?
Yes.
And they're going to visit 50 countries.
No,
the
I
other
ha-
one,
I
the other
haven't
one's
read
just
it
going to
yet.
go around the world.
Have I read it?
Richard?
Yes,
Well,
I read
say
it.
something.
I read it. It's going on its 6-year
Yeah.
journey, visiting 50 countries. The vessel has 130 square meters of solar panels, 2 vertical axis wind turbines. I read that.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Our next item is from Fusion.
The Northeast U.S. warming is off the charts. Study finds.
This is interesting. Our climate change is not uniform.
Yeah, I didn't realize that till I read this article.
According to the climate models used by researchers at UMass Amherst, the 48 contiguous U.S. states are projected to cross the 2 degrees C warming threshold about 10 to 20 years earlier than the global mean annual temperature. The Northeast is projected to warm by 3 degrees by the same...
That's centigrade.
Yeah, centigrade, 5.2 degrees Fahrenheit. By the time global warming in average reaches 2 degrees C.
That's a hoax. Didn't you know that?
You know, I did an article. I've been working on articles for Green Energy Times, and one of the things that's been coming up is moose deaths.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that.
And this is climate change. I'm sorry,
Oh,
there's
sure.
no way you can avoid
Absolutely.
dealing with this
Absolutely.
as climate change.
We will mention that.
Okay.
One thing this article doesn't mention is we're going to get warmer, but we're also going to get wetter.
Yes, and another thing too that they don't point out, and we will deal with this again when we deal with the moose, is that our years don't just warm up. The summers warm up more slowly than the winters.
The winters are getting warmer, as we can
Very
see
much faster.
right now.
We are about 2 degrees Fahrenheit warmer on average than we used to be, but the coldest night of the winter is about 10 degrees
Yeah, we're
warmer,
not getting the extreme cold.
which is why we've got deer
Moose-
ticks
moose
and
problems.
moose ticks and...
By the way, this is interesting because the article said that last year was the 2nd warmest winter on record in the U.S.
Mhm.
And as I'm reading this, I'm listening to VPR, Vermont
Mm-hmm.
Public Radio, and they're saying that last year was the warmest winter on
Yes,
record.
well,
So maybe
yeah.
they're talking about a different part of the country.
maybe. They
In
might-
any case, it's warm.
It's warmer than it was, warmer than it should be. Another thing that we've got to deal with is woolly adelgids. And, you know, we've just got messes on our
that
hands.
at all, I guess. But
Yeah. Our next item is from Innovate Long Island.
let's see, this is a good one.
Yeah.
Island winds blowing in Deepwater's direction. Now, that needs a little bit of
A little bit of it,
interpretation,
yes,
I
it
think.
needs to be translated. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo's call for wind farms in Long Island waters earned rave reviews from environmental activists. Leaders from the regional energy and ecology sectors are cheering Cuomo's call for the Long Island Power Authority to approve what would be the nation's largest offshore wind farm for a short time.
Sure, it's not a very big one.
It's not huge.
As wind farms go, it's 90 megawatts. That's small.
It's not that big.
But it's certainly a step in the right direction.
It absolutely is. And you
The
know, this
article
is
said, that they're far enough out to sea that you won't be able to
See them.
see them from land.
yeah.
So you're not going to get disturbed by the sight.
Well, I don't know why anybody would be disturbed by the sight unless they've been forced to be. But okay, so we're up to Saturday, January 14th,
Okay.
and we have a picture
this
for
is
this.
a goodie. This is the goodie.
Yeah, this is from Digital
Let's
Journal.
look at the picture because the picture is a nice picture.
Isn't that lovely?
The article is not. Wyoming bill would bar utilities from using wind or solar energy.
Well, what they're trying to do here is just repay the people worried about climate change and renewable energy in kind. While it may be hard to believe, 9 Wyoming lawmakers introduced a bill to forbid utilities from providing any electricity to the state that comes from large-scale wind or solar energy projects by 2019. Allowed resources would be coal, natural gas, hydroelectric, nuclear power, oil, and net-metered renewable power for individuals, but only
You can do it yourself.
you can
but
do it
can't
yourself,
sell
but
it.
you know, and they're just trying to say, look, you renewable power people are trying to make life miserable for us. We're going to give you payback, and I don't think it's going to do them much good, to tell you the truth.
These 9 lawmakers are all from the part of the state which produces coal.
Of course,
And Wyoming produces a
a
lot
lot
of
of coal. 40% of the nation's coal comes from Wyoming.
So according to the article, the proposed legislation is a last-ditch effort to save a coal industry that has already been crippled because of plummeting prices over the past few years.
Well, the coal industry is not going to be saved. We might as well just, all of us. I have a guy
But it's
who,
not going to be because of green, it's going to be because of economy.
yeah, I have a guy who goes to my blog daily, and he sends me emails probably 2 or 3 times a week, and he's a union organizer for the coal unions
Okay.
in New Mexico, but he travels around the United States, and he says he's trying to get his union members to re-educate themselves and get into the wind industry and the solar industry, and they are just putting up as much resistance as you can possibly imagine. He says his back is bloody with all the backstabbing.
He's on the right path.
He's on the right path. The problem is, in order for them to do that, they're going to have to start over as apprentices.
Yeah.
They're going to have to.
That's not a good prospect.
Not easy.
5 years of hard work for low pay.
Yeah, and it's just not easy for these guys, and they will have to start over in their retirement programs. Although I don't think they'd be walking away from their coal retirement programs, they would have to start with,
Well, one of the problems is that these new jobs popping up in the wind industry generally require agility.
Yes.
And these guys that have been working in the coal mines for a long, long time are no longer agile.
Yes, that's probably true.
And it's a big problem.
Okay. Well, we're up to the Boston Globe. We're still January 14th, and this is...
We just mentioned this one.
Yeah, we
Ticks
did.
devastate Maine, New Hampshire moose population.
Ticks are devastating moose populations in Maine and New Hampshire. They attach themselves to a single moose by the tens of thousands. There have been moose found with 70,000 ticks on them dead.
Wow.
The adult females can expand to the size of a grape. This is not the dog tick that people are familiar
No,
with.
this is a different kind of tick.
This is called the winter tick, and engorge themselves with up to 4 milliliters of blood. With warmer winter temperatures, they kill 70% of the state's moose calves. The states here being Maine and New Hampshire. Now,
Well, Vermont just got into this survey. They're in it up to their ears because it's happening in Vermont.
It's
too.
happening in Vermont. It's not as bad in Vermont. I talked to the head of the fish and game people in Vermont who was concerned with this, and he said it's not as bad here, and he thinks it's because Vermont organizes its moose hunts to have a thinner population than
So they're culling the herd.
They're culling the herd. The ticks don't spread as easily. Now, there is no doubt whatever in my mind that this is driven by climate change. The reason I say that, the reason I say that is because the same ticks will bite deer, but the deer don't have a problem with them.
Well, the deer licked them off.
Yes.
The moose aren't that smart.
Well, I don't know if the moose aren't as smart as deer, but the problem is that in their evolutionary past, they've never encountered these things.
That capability.
Okay, what does that tell you? How many millions of years have these moose been around without having to worry about ticks, and now all of a sudden they do?
Yeah.
This is a new phenomenon for them.
They're coming up from the south. They never lived here before.
Yeah, and I talked to the people at the World Wildlife Fund, and they said, yeah, they're worried about moose being extirpated in the Northeast. They're worried about moose being extirpated in North America.
Well, the moose aren't an endangered species because of this yet.
But that's what they're saying is it's conceivable that moose could go extinct.
It's conceivable, but moose almost went extinct by the turn of the last century.
Well, but they live over the entire northern hemisphere. There's lots of moose in Russia. There's lots of moose in Scandinavia.
Okay.
They aren't called moose there. They're called elk, but they're a very different creature from what Americans called elk. But it's a problem all over the world for moose because it's not just the ticks. Even if the moose can get away without the ticks in the old world, they still have other problems. I mean, even in the United States, they've got a problem with a critter called a brain worm, which eats their brains, or it eats the lining of the brain.
Sounds like fun.
And these same worms infest deer, but the deer are resistant to them. The moose have never had them before.
Okay, so they have not evolved.
They have, and this is happening to them so quickly that it's very likely that they won't evolve. Okay, we're up to Sunday.
There's an interesting picture in this article, by the way. Picture of a moose's ear.
Yeah.
And it's just loaded with ticks.
Yeah, it's like solid ticks.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it was until I read the text.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to an article from gulfnews.com. This is Sunday, January 15th.
World Energy Solutions at center of Abu Dhabi talks.
Abu Dhabi. Representatives of over 150 countries gathered in Abu Dhabi at the 7th Assembly of the International Renewable Energy Agency, which is called IRENA. Quote, plummeting costs and rapid innovation have spurred investments that are positioning renewable energy solutions at the center of energy discussion today, end quote. This is what IRENA's Director General said.
Well, this is a takeaway. The world is witnessing an unprecedented transformation of energy systems with increased deployment of renewable energy.
Yeah, and the stuff, well, we're going to follow this with another article.
Well, we're working on a special that's going to cover just exactly that.
And this next picture is kind of fun.
It is. This is a great picture, as a matter of fact.
This is a great picture.
I was wondering what all that furry stuff was. It's water.
It's droplets of water.
It's bubble stuff.
That was a bubble, and the person whose finger is there had touched it with their fingertip, and it blew up.
And the bubble's got a bubble inside it.
Yeah, it does. It's funny.
That picture's amazing.
Isn't it? But those little droplets are a bubble in the process of blowing up. Okay.
Process of disappearing.
And this is from Clean Technica.
Totally insane carbon bubble.
Natural gas and hydrogen, the hydrogen made from natural gas, from the fossil fuels, are the fossil fuels industry's last gasp. The industry is begging for a lifeline in order to live in gold-plated castles for another generation or so. Is the U.S. housing bubble? Question mark. Child's play. The carbon bubble? Question mark. This is big, scary, and ready to take a lot of casualties with it. And by the way, I'm going to make a prediction about a casualty that's going to be become a casualty of the carbon bubble within the next 4 years.
Okay, let's.
The Republican Party. Really, they have married themselves to the idea that climate change isn't happening, and we should be resurrecting coal, and we should be making things really good for oil and natural gas. And the hand I'm seeing writing on the wall is writing something that says, sorry, gang, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. By the way, I have to mention, this was a very well-written article.
Very well written.
It's long.
Yep.
If you got the time, look it up and read
Yep.
it. This guy is a good writer.
He's
really a good writer.
Zachary Shahan. He's a really good writer.
If there's any problem with his writing, he's talking about what should be obvious. And he's saying it over and over again in different ways.
You know, one of the things that you and I saw a video separately, but Jason Cooper sent this video. And the guy who did the video, who is very well known as a person who studies bubbles, disruptive technology is what he's studying.
He had a word for it, disruptions. Right? Disruptions.
Disruptions, yeah. And he says, basically, and he said this 10 months ago, if the price of solar power continues to decline at the speed it has been, and if the price of batteries continue to decline at the speed it has,
they're going to be paying you to take them away.
Well, it will be cheaper to get solar panels and store the electricity in batteries than to get electricity from the grid. Just the transmission cost alone for that electricity.
That's exactly correct.
By 2022. And the interesting thing about this is he was talking about price decreases of 19% per year. And I got news for you. They've already gone down way faster than that in the last year. And basically what he's saying is, in 5 years, and based on what I've seen, it looks like maybe 2 years worth of work has already been done. If a new electric producer is putting power on the grid, in order to compete with solar and batteries, it's going to have to produce that power for free.
Pretty much.
So, you know.
Well, the whole model is changing.
The whole model is changing.
The idea of large generating stations and transmission lines, bringing them locally where you can use them, is over.
It's over, yeah. And why are we building natural gas pipelines? If you look at the situation, it would make much better sense to use that money on something else.
For the very same reason.
Yeah, and we are building those natural gas pipelines for only one reason. It's not because we need the power, it's because somebody wants to use them to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. Duh.
Duh. Okay, should we go on?
There's a quick takeaway
okay.
here. There's no stopping the march of better technology. We are on the cusp of a monumental shift that fundamentally changes our approach to energy.
Yep.
Moving from a fire-based energy world to a clean tech-based energy world.
That's right.
Good takeaway.
It is. And you know, I want to say what this reminds me of a little bit. And that is when I was a computer engineer, software primarily, but I've got patents.
Among other things.
Patents in software and hardware. And the first personal computer I got, which was before the IBM PC came out, was a little machine that had 16 kilobytes of RAM. It had no disk drives.
Yep.
You know,
I had one like it.
Cost $1,000.
Well, mine was much cheaper. I got it later.
Yeah, but when I got that machine, Byte magazine, which was published in Peterborough, New Hampshire, had an article in it that I think it was Byte. It might have been PC World, but there was an article that appeared that talked about the changes. Now, mind you, this was like 1981. They said if the world of transportation had changed with sped up the way computers had sped up, reduced the price the way computers reduced the price, and so forth, became more powerful. They said over the last period since 1960, the way that computers had done, it would be possible in 1981 to buy a Boeing 747 for $7, fly it all the way around the world using half a gallon of aviation fuel. And you know, they went and do it in 15 minutes. And basically that's what the change had been for computers. And the change since then has been, it hasn't slowed down yet.
Not yet, not at all.
I mean, I can remember 1995 people saying it's got to slow down because we're limited by the speed of light. Guess what? We were not limited by the speed of light. We were not limited by the speed of light for a very simple reason, because what they were talking about was the distance of 1 foot from the memory to the CPU. Well, what do you do to deal with the fact that you want to get the memory to the CPU in less than a nanosecond?
You bring them closer.
You bring them closer. You put the memory on the CPU. All right. So anyway.
A little takeaway here.
Yeah.
I love this article.
Yeah.
But it's 2 sentences. I'm going to read them.
Okay, go ahead.
As the clean tech transition speeds up, many of us are jumping for joy. Trump may be king of tweetland, but he and his oil and gas buddies can't stop renewables or electric robo-taxis.
Yeah.
They know that.
They,
Their goals are pretty clear, though. Pump up the carbon bubble as much as possible, stuff as much cash into their own bank accounts before it pops, and hopefully retire and die before the whole global economy is brought down with a thin, soapy liquid that was probably much prettier as a bubble.
but it's going to happen while Trump's in office.
It could very
Unless
well.
Trump decides he's
very
going to
well.
retire ahead of time when he finds out that it's not as easy to be president as he thought.
By the way, this has nothing to do with this article, but this appeared on the same page that I got this, that I copied this article down from. It's a picture of a billboard.
Yes.
And the billboard, I got a picture of it right here on my computer.
Yeah.
When there's a huge solar energy spill, it's just called a nice day.
That's right. Okay, our next item is from The Guardian.
Climate change shows in shrinking Antarctic snows. Now, we've talked about this one already.
For international experts stationed at a base in Antarctica, the frozen southern continent is a good gauge of climate change. Quote, when I used to come to Antarctica in the 1990s, that's not that long ago, it never used to rain, end quote, said Rodolfo Sanchez, director of the Argentine Antarctic Institute. Quote, now it rains regularly instead of snowing, end quote. This is not good.
Well, the big difference between the North Pole and the South Pole is the North Pole ice is floating ice. It's like the ice cube in a drink.
Yeah.
When it melts, it doesn't raise the level of liquid in the drink.
If you don't believe it, try it. Just put an ice cube in a glass, mark where the water is, and when
But
the
in
ice...
Antarctica, most of that ice is on land.
Yes.
And when it melts, it goes right into the sea
Yep.
and tends to raise sea levels.
Take a drink, put a spoon over the top so that you can stick an ice cube there so that when it melts, it drips in, and it'll raise the water level.
Bingo. That's a good,
There you go.
good way of looking at it as a science project. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we should move on.
We should.
NWITimes.com brought us this next item.
I had a hard time figuring what that is. It's in northwest Idaho. No, not Idaho.
Iowa?
Northwest Indiana.
Indiana,
It's
okay.
in Chicago.
Do you know, this show is rebroadcast in Fort Wayne regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Why Hawaii is becoming the proving ground for the future of energy storage.
Well, it's not just Hawaii, it's all islands. According to the EIA, which is the Energy Information Administration, in October 2016, residential electric prices in Hawaii were 27.54 cents per kilowatt hour, and on the island of Kauai, rates were 32.78 cents per kilowatt hour starting this year. Hawaii is the first state in the U.S. where rooftop solar has become almost a standard item on new homes. They even put it in places unthinkable elsewhere, such as facing north or or in shady places. So they're just trying to get any amount of solar.
They're in a unique market.
They are.
I mean, Hawaii has no natural energy resources, so they have to import everything.
Or, yeah.
And the Hawaiians are, this is a takeaway, Hawaiians find solar to be so economical that almost all solar makes sense, as you just said.
Yeah.
And they are increasingly finding energy storage an economical solution as well.
Yep.
In less than a year and a half, the cost of solar and storage fell 30%. Hawaii is proving that a 100% renewable energy future is not only possible, it's closer than you think.
Yeah. We should continue.
We shall.
And our next item is from a
Nice
publication
picture here.
called Huddle Today. Sounds good to me.
Companies increasing energy storage developments as renewables grow.
Northland has been developing a 400 megawatt pumped storage project that takes the form of an old flooded mine sitting on a plateau just outside Marmora, Ontario. The roughly $900 million project pumps water up into the mine pit when there is extra energy, and then it lets it run down through a turbine when more energy is needed. Now, this is basically the same as Northfield Mountain.
Oh yeah.
But
the only difference is they had this open pit mine that
Yeah.
was spent.
Yeah.
And it filled up with water.
Anyway.
And somebody said, "What are we going to do with this?" And they came up with a good idea. Let's build a lake.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this
let's pump storage.
right, and this particular picture shows an interesting pumped storage facility because it gets its water much of the time without pumping it in because it's got its own water supply that puts water in.
There are springs in the old mine.
But they if they need to, they can pump water up there during low demand times, use up some electricity nobody wants, and make sure that the storage facility is in fact full.
Well,
So
that's what pump storage is.
this is kind of a hybrid thing. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica.
EPA issues notice of violation to Fiat Chrysler concerning Clean Air Act. Possible use of defeat devices.
Every time you look around, another car
These
company
guys
is.
are all wanting to cheat.
They all want to cheat. The U.S. EPA issued a notice of violation to auto manufacturer Fiat Chrysler automobiles over alleged violations of the Clean Air Act pertaining to the installation, use, and failure to disclose of engine management software in a large number of vehicles sold in the United States, according to a press release issued by the EPA.
Well, reading between the lines, it appears these are all diesels.
Yeah.
And there's about 100,000 vehicles involved.
Yeah, which is not as bad as the VW scandal.
And they just basically cheated.
Yeah. Well, they might not have. They're claiming that they didn't. Let's wait until
Let's
they come up with a
happens.
solution.
A quick
Okay.
takeaway here. Once again, a major automaker made the business decision to skirt the rules and got caught.
Well, this is when the VW scandal broke. One of the things that we had was a statement from a EPA inspector or something who said every car company does this.
I think they were right.
And I think they were right. Okay, our next item is from Renews.
Florida toasts solar trio.
Yeah. Florida Power and Light has completed 3 74.5 megawatt solar parks. That's each one of them is the same size in that state. FPL's total solar installed capacity is now 335 megawatts. FPL plans to install 4 more solar parks, each of 74.5 megawatts, in Florida this year at permitted sites in various counties. Construction is expected to start as early as the first quarter of 2017. This is new. Florida has not been moving aggressively.
Not at all. And they got plenty of sun.
They got, well, that's what they claim, It's, I've never been there, and I'm going to avoid it because I think they're telling the truth, and my skin just cannot take. Look at me. What color am I? Pink?
Sort of. Yeah.
Sort of pink. You know what I found out?
Yeah.
I had never known this before.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, my father used to tell me that his uncle had told him that one of our ancestors was an Indian, American Indian.
Yeah.
And he had said he thought that might have been a code word to cover up the fact that this ancestor was Jewish. Well, my niece
Yeah.
Did a DNA thing.
Yeah.
And they found out we have an ancestor who came from, guess where?
I can't.
West Africa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. How about
Yeah.
that?
I got a black man's nose. And it's an honest nose. Okay.
Interesting takeaway from this article.
Yeah.
The three plants that they just completed
Yeah.
finished on time and under budget.
Oh, this is
It's happening. Yeah.
we see this all the time. These things come on time and under budget over and over and over again. And the
Nuclear
state of
plants aren't
Arkansas,
doing that.
the state of Arkansas is suing over the clean energy plan, but they've already achieved its goals. I mean, it's crazy, and it's like we want to return to coal. We want to build nuclear power plants. Why? Okay, our next item is from Thomas Reuters Foundation.
Nice picture here.
And this is a horrible picture. Tuesday, January 17th. Would you like to live there?
I don't think so.
Okay,
and there are people living just like that.
Well, the
in
person
States.
standing in the doorway is living there.
Yeah.
Okay. Title?
In the latest move, China halts over 100 coal-fired power projects.
Yeah.
They've started these projects, and they're halting them.
Right. As China is weaned off coal, its energy regulator has ordered 11 provinces to stop developing over 100 coal-fired power projects, including some that are under construction. Their total installed capacity was over 100 gigawatts. This
That's
is
a lot.
big. And
That is
at a
big.
cost of approximately 430 billion yuan, which is $62.3 billion. This amount has been invested in them. They're cutting and running. They want to get away from this stuff. And by the way,
Yeah.
they have not ordered a single nuclear power plant in China in over a year.
That's interesting.
I found that out today.
That's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, because they have been moving toward a lot of nuclear.
Yep.
Quick takeaway here. Stopping under construction projects seems wasteful and costly.
Yeah.
But spending money and resources to finish these completely unneeded plants would be even more wasteful.
We reported just a couple of weeks ago on a plant in Belgium where they built the plant, they got it into operation, and a year and a half later they decided to
closing it.
shut it down for economic reasons. That's a big loss. Okay, we have to keep going. Bloomberg.
Saudis seek up to $50 billion in renewable energy expansion.
Yeah, here's the people who have all the oil. Saudi Arabia will start soliciting bids in the next few weeks for the first phase of a massive renewable energy program costing $30 billion to $50 billion, according to the energy minister. OPEC's biggest oil producer plans to generate close to 10 gigawatts from renewables, primarily solar and wind power, by 2023.
That's coming up quick.
It is. And you know,
What they're doing here is they're trying to conserve their oil so they can sell it. Why use it ourselves if we don't get the profit?
yeah.
That's basically what they're doing.
Well, they're trying to sell their oil so they can sell it before
Before
nobody wants it.
before
You know, I mean,
nobody
they're
wants it.
poor Saudis. I feel sorry for them.
And they're also working on nuclear.
yeah. Okay, our next item is from Renewable Energy Magazine.
American wind energy jobs reach 100,000, according to the Department of Energy.
Employment in the U.S. wind energy industry is higher than that of at nuclear, natural gas, coal, or hydroelectric power plants, according to the DOE. The report also says growth in the industry is possible with the potential to create 380,000 jobs by 2030. Of course, Donald Trump wants to resurrect coal, so maybe that won't happen. The DOE report validates job figures from the AWEA, American Wind Energy Association.
Well, this is also interesting. These wind jobs can be found across the nation, with nearly 25% of American wind workers being employed in Texas alone.
Yeah, but they could go anywhere,
They can
really.
go anywhere, yeah, but a lot of them are happening in Texas.
Well, I shouldn't say that because there are places.
I think it was the same article mentioned that ideal candidates for this work is people coming out of the armed forces.
Yes,
They're young, they're agile, and they've just learned how to do things.
yes,
You know,
yeah.
So they're
I
looking
don't-
to recruit veterans.
I don't think that I would be interested in climbing a 400-foot ladder.
I know I would.
Yeah,
I have a hard time changing a light bulb.
yeah, well. Okay, we are up to Wednesday, January 18th, and this is a much more important item than it sounds, I think, but it's from Clean Technica.
Las Vegas now home to first self-driving electric shuttles in the U.S.
The city of Las Vegas is now home to the first self-driving all-electric shuttle service on public roads in the U.S., according to recent reports. The new electric autonomous shuttle service is the result of collaboration between shuttle manufacturer Navia, and I don't know if Navia is actually how you pronounce that. It looks like Navia to me, but, you know, what do I know? The fleet logistics provider Keolis, I don't know how to pronounce that either, and the city of Las Vegas.
You did a good job on that one.
Did I? I'm so glad. It was just a guess. This little vehicle, which looks like it's in a circus.
Minibus.
Yeah, it's a sort of a minibus. If you look at the people standing on the street corner behind it, you realize that this thing is not small, but it doesn't have a driver.
Yeah.
And that video that we saw, which we're going to do a special out of probably in a week or two, the person who was talking about disruption was talking about these shuttles and things like them. The numbers of companies that are getting involved in this. Lyft.
The car manufacturers.
Yeah. What is the name of that company that has the... Well, certainly the car manufacturers, the computer companies, and these.
I'm sure Tesla's getting involved.
Yeah, and the companies that are starting to compete with taxis, and basically what happens is if you have a cell phone, you put in a thing that says I'm at this GPS location.
Yep.
And they will come pick you up and take you where do you want to go, and if there's some way that they can get people to car share with you, it reduces the price.
You get a discount.
You get a discount. And what's happening here is these cars don't have to park.
Right.
So they don't occupy parking places that would compete with
I think the
people.
article said like 90% of the time the car is parked.
Yeah, 96% of the time peak cars in cities are parked.
Well, it was predicting that in, I forget how many years, nobody's going to have a car anymore.
Basically what it says is you can get a service that's as good as having your own car from a service like this.
Yep.
And this is starting...
This is a developing technology.
Developing technology. And as that happens, it will reduce the amount of traffic in cities. It will reduce dramatically the amount of oil that is consumed, gasoline and diesel oil in cities. It will reduce the demand for vehicles in cities because people will find that they can get as good service out of these cars, self-driving cars, as they get out of their own vehicles, which cost $12,000 a year or more.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people who have told me that they're spending $250 a month on their or more on their parking place.
Wow. Well, in New York City, it's cheap.
Yeah. And so
Just selling parking places for $1 million.
I didn't know that. Never heard that one.
And the article also says it's going to open up an enormous amount of real estate for parking places because they're not going to be needed anymore.
And what are they going to be used for? See, a lot of this real estate...
building offices.
Well, they might, but they might also be used for other things like parks or farms.
In the city?
Farms in the city.
Well,
these are things that...
It's not a bad idea.
Well, you know, there was a...
Vertical farming.
Vertical farming. There was somebody took over a warehouse that was not in use, so it got cheap, near Tokyo, and they started farming lettuce. They're coming up with something like 3,000 heads of lettuce a day in this warehouse.
And the transportation to the market is cheap.
The transportation is cheap. And that business of transportation, whether it's transportation of actual goods or transmission of electricity, is becoming more and more important because as the price of solar power goes down, it is competing with power sources that have to be transmitted where it doesn't have to.
Well, if you go into a Hannaford's or a Price Chopper here in Vermont in the wintertime,
Yeah.
the produce section is full.
Yes.
And almost everything in there came from out of state.
out
Some
of
them
country.
came from out
Chile,
of country.
Israel.
Yeah.
You know, they fly this stuff to the United States. It's in terms of carbon emissions, it's very intensive use of the food. Production of food and the transportation of food produces a lot of carbon emissions.
It's very inefficient any way you look at it.
But you can do this locally. And you know, when you consider that, for example, you can get grow lights that are made with LEDs, and people
And
are
they're programmable.
and they're programmable.
They change the spectrum to
Absolutely.
relate to the plant's growth cycle.
Right. So basically, this is one of the things that is driving the carbon bubble that we were talking about earlier to break, is the fact that we're in a situation now where in the next 5 years, we may see the demand for gasoline for city driving collapse. And that video that we were talking about earlier, the man who did the video, and I've forgotten his name. Do you remember the name?
No, I don't.
Well, he was comparing two pictures taken in New York City, in which one of them was taken in 1900, and it showed a street full of horse-drawn vehicles with one car. Another of the same place, later, 13 years later.
13, okay.
The same street, full of vehicles. They were all cars except one drawn by a horse.
In 13 years.
In 13 years. And
so we're on the peak of another such revolution.
Right. That is basically correct. This computer right here, you know, has 32, it has a very small solid state hard drive, 32 gigabytes.
I got that much in my cell phone.
In your cell phone. Okay, 32 gigabytes. When I first started working with computers, the computer that I worked on, 32 gigabytes would have cost about $250 billion.
It would have taken a building the size of this to house it.
It would have been huge. Now, that was a long time ago, you know. But nevertheless, that is where we're going with energy.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, should we move on? We've got one more item. This is from VT Digger.
Bringing it back home.
Yes, vtdigger.org.
Burlington Electric, Vermont, and the Vermont Technology Council create an exploratory team to assess potential for Vermont Energy Startup Accelerator.
I would recommend that somebody who's interested in engaging in business in Vermont in renewable energy actually look at this article, because or some other article like it.
Well, it makes sense. Let's bring in these industries.
Yeah.
Let's teach them how to do it.
Yep. The Vermont Technology Council and the Burlington Electric Department announced the formation of an exploratory team to assess the potential for a Vermont energy startup accelerator. It's called Power Up Vermont, Power Up being a single word, no hyphen in it, to help businesses focused on innovating in the power industry and driving the transmission from fossil fuels to renewable energy. What this is saying is that they're incentivizing these businesses.
This is basically a school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're teaching these guys how to do these things.
Yep.
I got a quick rundown of what they're teaching them.
Oh, okay, good.
It's a 12-week program designed to provide growing energy businesses with a competitive advantage through a mentorship program and seminars in venture capital, fundraising, sales training, marketing, branding, business development, client acquisition, and power industry specific advice. What did they miss?
I don't know. Power generation?
They're doing that. They know how to do that. This is how to basically turn that into a business.
Well, what they're doing is they're turning things into businesses, and they're trying to help people, as I said, get going on this if they and
by the way, improve the business climate in Burlington.
Yes, well, Burlington is, I think, a pretty vibrant community already, but you know, this is what
they're just trying to make it better.
Well, you know, one of the things about technology, and they're dealing with technology here, is that the only way you can stay at only way you can stay on top of it is to know where it's going. You
Okay.
have to stay ahead of the curve in order to
Yep.
be on the curve. And so they're moving in that direction. Anybody who's, the people in Wyoming who are saying we don't want to have to deal with this, all right, let's resurrect manual typewriters and mechanical adding machines and see how far that gets. These people in Burlington are saying, okay, the world is changing and we want to be ready for that change. So we'll say goodnight and see you next time.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stand.